Hello, and welcome back to the Nourish with Purpose podcast. It's Bailey, and I hope you're having a great Wednesday or whenever you're listening to today's episode. I am just going to have to ask y'all to have a little grace with me, which you all have, whoever is listening to these podcast episodes. I am just really struggling to get into consistently podcasting again, but I do want to, and I have things that I want to share with you, exciting updates that I want to share with you week to week. It's just a matter of making it work in my schedule. So we might be a little sporadic, but I promise I will try to deliver. But how are you? I hope you're having a great week so far. I really feel like the last couple of weeks, and honestly just August, went by in a blimp of time. We really were just, spending a lot of time at home because that is what my husband and I's jobs entail, is being at home, but trying to do things on the weekend. And there are some updates that I feel like I just totally blanked on sharing with you. So we're going to get into all the catch up. But today, the bulk of today's episode, we're going to be talking about, are you eating enough? I noticed that this is something among women that they are typically under fueling. So we're going to dive into what it looks like to actually eat enough, how I typically recommend structuring a day of eating just to make sure you're hitting both protein and calorie goals, and then how you can actually kind of the next steps for you on understanding what your body needs and trying to meet the needs of your body. So we'll get into all of that. But of course, I want to catch up with you first. I feel like the last few weeks, we've had some fun things happening on the weekends. Like on my husband's birthday, we went to go see Old Dominion. And if you are from Nebraska, there's a venue called Stir Cove, which is actually just across the border into Iowa. And it's an outdoor venue, but the concert was there, and it's just such a nice venue to be in. You're outside, you get fresh air. It was a beautiful evening, and that was our first date night since Oliver has been born. And we then came home because Oliver needs to eat, and I'm primarily breastfeeding. I'll pump if I have to. So we obviously needed to get home to feed him and just have bedtime be kind of normal. But it was something. It was interesting for it to just be Nate and I. And I feel like that is something that, I love to have Oliver with us, but it is just an extra thought, right? It's an extra, okay, when are we going to feed him? If we're in public, when am I going to slip away to feed him? And so it was really nice just to have an evening with us two and to be able to go to a concert. We went with a couple friends and just had a really, really good time. My husband definitely likes more of like the pop country music. I'm more like traditional. If there isn't a fiddle, I don't want to listen to a type of gal. I still like all country, but that's just kind of like the difference in our taste. So I was really glad that we were able to go do that and kind of celebrate his birthday. And then we also had our anniversary, and maybe I talked about this on the previous episode, but we really didn't do anything too groundbreaking for our anniversary. We don't really do like flowers and gifts. I would say my husband and I tend to be more conscious when it comes to spending money. And so for us, it's like, we know we love each other. We are excited to hit 4 years, but we just don't really do gifts. I'm like, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. He was asking me, he's like, is the expectation that I like get you flowers on an anniversary? And I'm like, I wouldn't not like that. But then I'm like, at the same time, I didn't even think about what I was going to get you for our anniversary. And I think it goes both ways, right? I feel like as women, sometimes it's like, well, I want to be pampered and I want all of these things. And then I think about the gifts or the lack of gifts that I get my husband. And I'm like, why would I expect him to do that for me, right? Like it needs to go both ways. He's still waiting on his Father's Day gift, and that was in June. So that's just kind of how I am with gifts. I feel like I just don't plan ahead enough. And that's something that when I became a mom, I'm like, okay, now I really need to plan ahead for like birthday parties and holidays. Like I want them to feel special and be special. And that just requires a little extra planning on my part. So that's going to be an adjustment that I'll have to make. So then that was a few weeks ago, and then have had some crazy weeks. My husband's like, is this how it's going to be now that you're back into the swing of working? Like, is every week going to be like this, like it was last week? And I'm like, honestly, I think so, which is such a blessing and such a good thing, but it's just it's harder to take care of myself when that's what my schedule looks like, right? And that's anybody that works a job or is with their kids full time, is you just really have to make an effort to take care of yourself. And for me, because Oliver can be included, it's like a lot of walks. We go on a lot of walks, especially like in the morning or early afternoon. I went for a walk with a friend earlier this week, like midday, and that was so nice to just be able to like middle of your day, go for a walk after lunch and at least get that type of movement in. And then of course, if I can strength train, I try to add that in. But that one is a little bit harder because it's just the guilt of setting Oliver down and having him in a bouncer watching me work out. It feels silly, although he honestly loves it because I just crank up the music and he just like will wiggle on the floor, or if he's in his bouncer, he's just smiling. And then honestly, anytime I can dance for him or sing to him, he is just so happy. And so I know he doesn't feel neglected, but it's just that part of like, am I neglecting him if I'm moving my body and he's not actively being played with? And so that's just kind of the struggle, right? I guess to be very transparent and real with you, it's like that's just sometimes a struggle to feel like you're not being selfish when you do that. And my husband is wonderful. Like by 5 o'clock, typically my mom and I will work out with each other, and we did this all summer. It's been a little bit harder now that my work schedule has changed on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays. My evenings typically consist of calls or working, but we'll try to work out at like 5 o'clock, and then my husband will stop working and take Oliver, and then I go for about an hour to work out in the evening. So that has been really nice. Like he's so great with that. But sometimes I just want to get it done in the day. I'm definitely like they call it like eat the frog in the morning or eat the frog first, I think, which is just so disgusting to think about. But basically do the most challenging part of your day in the morning, get it over with, get it done. And that is definitely how I am. So adjusting to working out, it's almost kind of like that sacrifice, right? Of like just adjusting when I'm working out so that it works with Oliver's schedule and our family's schedule instead of just when I want to do it. And so that's just taken some time. And I've been actively trying to eat more throughout the day. So that is also why I really wanted to talk today about eating enough calories, because that's a big piece of this too. And just taking care of myself and taking the time to do that and to eat and to meal prep and to get groceries. And it's just taken some adjusting. So I am actively, that is why I think like working with women is just so enjoyable, because it's actively like figuring out how we can make the most of the day without causing too much added stress, while also filling our cup so we can pour into our family. And there's just like such a yin and yang that comes with that, and a lot of adjusting. But it can be done. And that's something I'm learning, is like all the things that I want to do to take care of myself can be done, but it's a sacrifice and it's not an exchange. I always kind of thought like, well, if I don't know, if Oliver's taking a nap, then I can just relax. But no, it's like an exchange of like, well, he's taking a nap, now I can work. Or he's taking a nap, now I can do my devotional. And it's an exchange. It's never just like he's sleeping, I'm just going to lay here and take a nap beside him, which maybe is what I should do. But I don't, because there's other things to get done. So it's just a lot of energy demands. And obviously like I only have one child. So I don't want to make it sound like, I don't know. I guess if you have more than one kid, like I obviously applaud you, and the balance or the structure of your days. It just adds to the complexity of it, but it absolutely can be done. And that is just what I love to, I guess I'm trying to like show and share, is like not everything, the things that you are kind of like those high values, high priorities for you. There is a way to make them work into your schedule with having kids, but it just maybe takes a little bit more effort or more adjusting of your schedules, and I guess to make it work. So that's kind of the phase I'm at. And I know it'll be ever changing for the rest of my life, because I'll have Oliver and he'll get older, and then I'll have more kids, hopefully. And it's always just going to be like that. But now I'm kind of getting sidetracked. Okay, so what else has been going on? This last weekend, we went to the Husker football game, and we took Oliver to his first tailgate, and that was so fun. I just feel like babies, they just make everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, but most people just like are so happy when they see a baby. And there is just something about, I was talking to my friend Hannah about this, like about how a baby is able to cause other people to just feel like, I don't even know how I'm trying to say this. Like, they just really lighten the stress, I guess. They lighten the load. They lighten the intensity of a situation. And I think that's so true. And I've heard my parents talk about that too. Like when they had me, I was kind of unexpected. They weren't necessarily planning on having a kid as soon as they did after they got married, but they did. And obviously there's stressful seasons in everybody's life, and how a baby can just kind of minimize that stress, or at least be a temporary stress relief, because they are just happy and they're smiley and they are just truthfully a nervous system reset is what I think a baby is, because they are so regulated and they are so like just calm typically, right? If everything is well and they're full and they're fed and they've got a good environment to be in, right? They are just happy and calm, and it just brings everybody's tension down. And I just kind of noticed that when we take him into public, of like, even if he's like being passed around or people are interacting with him, is like they can just kind of like breathe. And I feel that way too. And I think it's like trying to really enjoy those moments where I feel like, okay, like Oliver is happy, like we can just breathe. Like I don't need to fill every second of my day with something. I don't need to fill this time with scrolling on social media. Like he's happy. Let me just like look at him and play with him and just be at peace with it. And so, of course, like I've shared before, it's taken so much of my body, like my body just resists slowing down so much. If I get like a hit of stress, like I want more and more and more. Like I do believe like you can be addicted to stress, and I can see patterns so obviously in other people, but it's a lot harder and you have to be more brutally honest to see that pattern in yourself. But I do see that, like, as soon as things with work pick up, it's like boom, boom, boom. Like now I just want to ride the high of this. Like I just want to be overworking, or I want to fill every second of my day with working, and then just having Oliver with me. It's just a very calming presence. So anyway, it was fun to go to, the tailgate and just have him, be present and do what we do. And then on Sunday, so this last Sunday, we went then to Omaha. I got to do some antiquing. Really, really exciting. My husband got like a little he shed to be in the back of our yard that he has as his office now, just because with Oliver being at home with me, he just will be giggling or screaming or crying. And although he's not that distracting, I know as he gets older, it's just going to be more of like coming in to distract dad while he's working. And so although some of that's fine, I think we both kind of decided it's best if he's out in the shed and has that as like his little office. So he has like a heater and an AC out there, a little man shed, and that's where he is going to start working. So this weekend we kind of flipped his office to finally be my office. You guys, when I tell you I've been working from the most bizarre places, I looked at my husband one day and I'm like, this is silly. Like I am on a dining room chair using a bar stool as my prop for my computer. I'm using 600 extension cords to hook up my computer and everything that I need for a client call. And I'm just like sitting in Oliver's nursery, like in the most obscure setup. I'm like, this is just not it, right? My office has been kind of fluid since we moved to this house because we changed my nursery. We changed my office into Oliver's nursery, and then I didn't work for about 9 weeks after I had him. And then it was kind of me working wherever I could. And so now to have an office, I'm just so happy about it. I just was so giddy on Saturday when we were moving everything around. My mom saved one of the rugs that she was going to get rid of or had extra of. And so I have a nice big rug in here, space for my workout mat, my standing desk, and then I'm just looking because I'm sitting in here, my walking pad and all my dumbbells. And it's just so nice. And I'm so excited to decorate it and to get like drapes and artwork on the wall. And I want to get a little chair that I can have where I like podcast, kind of like my podcast area, so that I can start doing video again and uploading to YouTube that I was doing prior to having Oliver. And I just want to make it my space, make it feel cozy and like a fun place to come and work. The lighting in here is wonderful. If and when I'm able to get in here early enough, I'll be able to watch the sunrise while I'm sitting in here or stretching. And I have a little area right now where I have my yoga mat laid out. And so my plan is once I get my Loom box, it's that red light box I got when they were having a big sale for Labor Day. I'm just going to set that up and I'm just going to stretch and just have that be kind of my time in the mornings, and I have a space to go. Like, I just don't feel like I'm floating around anymore. I didn't realize how much that was kind of stressing me out until I finally have the stability of an office and a space again, and it just feels so good. So that's been fun. But that's why I went antiquing yesterday, because I wanted to get some artwork for the walls, and I'm kind of envisioning doing a bunch of floral prints, like some that maybe don't necessarily go together, but like floral and fruit artwork, antique or thrifted artwork that I can then do a collage with, maybe like a mirror. So many of the antique shops had like a round mirror, but then it had like a really pretty oak frame, but they were so expensive. I'm like, I feel stupid spending $125 on a mirror, although I know it's antique and it's really, really pretty. It's just, I just didn't want to spend that much. So I want to find some like mirrors that I can have put up and just have a collage behind me, so when I'm taking client calls, like I just have a pretty backdrop and not a random backdrop like sitting in my bed or sitting in Oliver's bedroom or just all of the places I've been at to take calls. It just feels much more like grounding, I guess, again, to have a space that I can go and do that. So very excited about that. The creative juices are flowing. We live in a house that's like over 100 years old. So I, of course, want to like keep the character. I want to add character, like even thinking with how I'm going to hang the curtains in here to get a rod that maybe has like some like brass animals, or that sounds weird, but like brass like flower designs on it or something. I just want it to have character, and I want it to be very curated and very special and feel very cozy. Just because that makes me feel more productive. I think the space you're in and the cleanliness of the space you're in contributes a lot to how your brain is. And I always think like a cluttered space is a cluttered brain. And so keeping things organized, keeping things clean and very pretty and I guess aesthetic is kind of my goal. So I know that'll take time, but I'm just so excited to have an office again and just make it feel cozy, right? Yeah, outside of that, I mean, that's really what we're doing this fall. I just feel like in the summer, I don't really want to socialize, which is silly because it's like when maybe some people have off work or there's a lot of activities going on, but I just feel like summer goes by so fast, and I want to just savor the time that like my mom's off of work and spend time with her. And I really just don't necessarily want to socialize as much in the summer. It's also super hot. So like you can go for a walk in the morning or in the evening, but during the day, it's just brutal. The weather is cooling off here, and I am ready to socialize. Fall is like my time to shine, I feel like. I'm ready to socialize, like going to Vallis Pumpkin Patch is a big thing around here. I would like to go to Arbor Day Farms for the Applejack Festival. What else are we wanting to do? Go to Junk Stock, which is like an antique fair that happens in Omaha or outside of Omaha. And just so many of these activities just are so energizing and filling the weekends with something to look forward to. Again, I didn't realize that like I really needed that. We get so into our routine and we like to be at home. So we have to like really push ourselves to socialize and go do things. But when we do, I'm like, this is good for us because we love to work and we love our work. And I don't think that's a bad thing. But when that's all you then think about on the weekends because you're trying to get things done that you couldn't fit into the week before, or you are at home looking at your office and so then work is fresh on your mind, like it's just good to have some separation. And so I've told that to Nathan this weekend. I'm like, it is just very refreshing to enter into this week knowing that we had a weekend where we could see friends, see family, and socialize and do things and have fun together as a family too. I guess kind of last catch up is I also spoke at a church. This was not this Sunday, but the Sunday before. So the theme was gluttony. And what I really admired is this pastor wanted to not just talk about gluttony and say, do better, right? Don't overeat, but actually give you realistic ways to not overeat or to eat enough or to just nourish your body really well. So it was really cool. During his sermon, he just kind of like brought me on stage and we just did like an interview style. So I got to talk about the work that I do, but also like the core 4 method, how you can create a balanced plate, how you can eat enough, how you can not avoid emotional eating, because sometimes our emotions overtake, but how you can approach, I guess, emotional eating, that relationship with food piece, and how you can work on healing that. And it was just really special. And I have spoken to women's groups within the church a handful of times, and I really do enjoy it because I think women, I guess it's just maybe more obvious sometimes, or women are more vocal about their relationship with food or how they eat or how they structure their meals. And typically women are responsible for creating meals within the household. And so being able to talk to women's groups is really helpful because they then have things to go forth and they can take what we talk about and actually implement it. So I'm not saying that men don't struggle with that, but I think I see that a lot within women, and that's primarily the population I work with. So I do enjoy being able to speak to those types of groups. So it was really special to be able to get into a church and just talk to a whole congregation about what I do and how they can, most importantly, move forward implementing the things that I shared. So that was really special, and something I definitely want to do more of is that public speaking piece, because I do really enjoy it, and I just love connecting with people after that too, and just seeing what they're able to get out of it. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and jump into the bulk of today's episode. So we are talking about if you are eating enough. So we've got that conversation of, are you eating enough? And I would say in a society that is obsessed with calories historically, if we think about dieting and diet culture, that has been ever present since about the 80s, maybe even 90s into the early 2000s. And I feel like it's just kind of been something that is now kind of reignited because people are on weight loss medications or really focusing on weight loss now because there is, in a sense, a quick fix to do that. And so that also means that their body just wants less calories. When you are on those medications, I feel like that's a piece of it, of you're just not that hungry, right? And the reason you're not hungry is because it slows down your body's digestion and slows down the whole process of breaking down food, right? So food is just sitting in your stomach for longer, and that is kind of why you're not maybe wanting to eat as much. So that is kind of, I think, why calories maybe have become a topic again of making sure you're eating enough calories or not eating enough calories. And that's what people are really looking at, along with protein. So calories and protein are two components, along with water intake, that I do focus on with clients. And this is very goal depending, right? So if you are wanting to lose weight, it's going to look different. If you are breastfeeding, it's going to look different. If you're in a state of healing, this is going to look different. If you have a sedentary job, or if we see patterns of insulin resistance or blood sugar issues within blood work, this is going to look different. But just eating enough calories for your basic metabolic function is something that I highly encourage. And then from there, we can adjust that, right? We can adjust it based off of all of those factors, because it's not just going to be your basic metabolic rate that you need, but you're also going to factor in your activity level. If you're getting outside for walks or strength training, or like I said, if you're breastfeeding, that's going to be extra calories as well. So are you eating enough is the question I want you to really ask yourself. And I'm going to walk you through some factors that can kind of help you evaluate if you are actually eating enough without doing a calorie breakdown, which you can also calculate. If you look up a basal metabolic rate calculator, you can calculate how many calories your body needs for basic metabolic function. Meaning if you were to lay in bed, not do anything all day long, your body would be actively burning that amount of calories just for organ function. Oliver's sneezing. Okay, so the first question you're going to ask yourself is, when do you notice you want to snack the most? Okay. And maybe this is something where after you listen to today's episode, you can create more awareness around this. I would recommend keeping a food log or a food journal, just so you know and can kind of answer these questions throughout the day in real time, right? So have a journal with you, or maybe use the notes app in your phone to evaluate kind of your eating patterns and your eating habits. So when do you notice yourself wanting to snack the most? If you would say in the morning, this is kind of normal, but I would encourage you to then evaluate your breakfast, right? And prioritize breakfast. I would say your biggest meal of the day should be that first meal of the day. And when I say first meal, that means your breakfast, because we don't skip breakfast. You want to be eating within that 30 to 60 minutes of waking up, right? That's going to be ideal. So that 30 minutes to 60 minutes after you wake up, you want about 20 to 30 grams of protein, and that should be the biggest meal of your day. So if you notice yourself wanting a snack mid-morning, that's pretty normal. That's great for blood sugar support. I will say there is difference in eating patterns based off of different clients. Some clients, I would say men, probably do best with 3 big meals a day, whereas some women do better with, again, bigger meal in the morning, a snack, lunch, snack, then supper, and then kind of finishing out their day with a tea or something to just support their body. So, oh my gosh, I hope you didn't hear that. I'm nursing Oliver and he just did it. Okay, anyway, we are getting into then the second piece of this is if you notice yourself snacking in the evenings, it means that you are probably not eating enough in the beginning part of your day. So if you eat supper and you're like, oh my gosh, I need a bowl of cereal before I go to bed, there could be an emotional factor at play here, right? Like it could be because you historically growing up, you would have a bowl of cereal before bed, or maybe you got into that pattern in college and that's just something your body craves, okay? That's the emotional piece. But if you notice the hunger signal of like your stomach is growling, you're hangry, you feel like you could eat everything in the fridge and you've just finished the last meal of the day, then we need to start front loading your day. So that looks like adding in more calories at the beginning of your day, so that you're not trying to make it up in the evening, which this just takes kind of some, again, if you're keeping kind of a journal, and I'd encourage you to do that if this is something you're interested in, keep a journal of when you notice a hunger or full cue, right? Or for sure that hunger cue, because if it's mid-morning, like I said, that's not abnormal. You want to nourish then with a higher protein snack. And then in the evening, if that's when you are the most hungry, then we need to evaluate what you're eating throughout the day and make sure that you're not just saving up all those calories to have for your last meal of the day, because that is a lot on your digestive system. It's something I noticed, and I'll kind of share my own example, but when I was doing this, and this is kind of the thing, is historically I've always underfueled, okay? I've historically eaten too little, and this stems from tracking calories and really trying to lose weight. But from that, I feel like I've had a more difficult time than eating enough throughout the rest of the day. And so when I did my own calculation to see how much food I needed, I realized I was underfueling by about like 900 to 1,000 calories. And so for me, if I was to just jump right into that, like, okay, now I'm going to start eating, the 2,800 calories that I need, and I'm going to start doing that tomorrow, okay? That means like my 3 meals of the day would be big, followed by a snack in between. And that was just something that I think would be a lot on my digestive system to break down. And so I know that I need to gradually be adding in more food or even more snacks throughout the day without necessarily making my meals larger. Or with more protein, because again, that can impact your digestive system. So I really think smaller, more consistent meals people tend to do better with, but sometimes we'll see the alternative where they actually do better with doing 3 larger meals. I would say, again, that's mostly something I see within men, or if you're somebody who has a lot of digestive stress or something like candida or bacterial overgrowth or yeast overgrowth, you might notice you do better with just smaller meals in general, eating less calories, giving your body a chance to kind of kind of recover from that, remove like that consistent exposure to food, or just that food always in your digestive system, give it a chance to fully empty or partially empty before you add in more food. So again, this is so specific based off of a variety of factors, but something I will say, and this is all just very general advice, if you have and want more specific advice for you, that's again when working with somebody can be really helpful, and especially getting blood work done or HTMA testing done to see what your body specifically needs. What's interesting through HTMA is we can actually see your metabolic type, and we can see what foods your body benefits from the most, right? So if you do better with higher protein, moderate fat, lower carb, or vice versa, we can see that through HTMA testing, which is just so cool. And we can really see how your body is able to break down food, okay? Okay, so then the next piece of this is, are you eating often or are you thinking about food all the time? You're constantly thinking about your next meal or snack. Now, there are some instances where this is not necessarily a bad thing, right? If you know you have issues with blood sugar, so for example, if I see patterns of insulin resistance within blood work, we would say, okay, smaller, more consistent meals is important for your body. So that means that we need to be thinking about that mid-morning snack, need to be thinking about that mid-afternoon snack. Sometimes I'll even have clients like set a reminder on their phone. Ideally, we would be listening to our hunger and full signal, right? But sometimes, especially when we see those patterns, is their body gets to a point where they're like, oh crap, now I feel really, really off. And I should have fueled maybe 30 minutes ago before I let my body get to the point where I just feel really, really off. So that is where, again, it's different person to person, but it's sometimes an okay thing to be thinking about food often. But if it is constantly an obsession of you of like, okay, when am I going to eat again? You probably are not eating enough throughout the day, or you don't have enough density to your meals. So sometimes, having a rough gauge of like 500 to 600 calories per meal of your core four, right? If you don't know what the core four is, go back and listen to previous podcast series I did on each stage of the core four: a protein, a carbohydrate, starchy carb, fiber in the form of a fresh fruit or vegetable, and a healthy fat. The 4 pieces to each meal. This will look a little different if you are pregnant, which I outlined in... Okay, man. Oliver. Bro. Okay. But I've outlined that in that pregnancy or that prenatal prep guide that I've created, is how this will look different throughout pregnancy. So if you're also pregnant, this will look different. However, when you are able to focus on the core four, that creates a balanced plate, creates density within your meal, and you typically are then fine for at least, I would say, about 3 hours. So something that I'll notice, if I don't add a starchy carb to a meal, I'm typically then hungry about 30 minutes to an hour after a meal. Now, I am somebody who has done the low carb diet. I've done the avoid any pasta, breads, etc. And now I notice, especially postpartum, that I really need that, and that my body feels much better when I have adequate amounts of carbs present. Something that we can also look at through blood work is if your body's not getting enough calories, or if it's not doing well, or there's extra stress on the body because you're fasting, or if you're doing low fat within your diet. Now, this is a pattern that we can see, like I said, through blood work. And most people, if you're aware of what you're consuming, you can probably make that assumption of like, oh yeah, I'm under eating, or I'm not eating enough fat, or I'm fasting and my body's under more stress. So some people can be very in tune with their body and just kind of know that, whereas other people, we kind of expose that through blood work. Or even if you think you're eating enough, but you have a very high demanding exercise routine. I was actually just looking at a client's blood work and I got on a call with her and she's like, I'm doing too much, aren't I? And I'm like, yeah, I think this is less about what can we add in to support your body and more of what can we remove, because you're doing too much and not eating enough. And sometimes we just need to be told that, right? We can think like, well, I've been eating the same way since I was in high school and, it works for me. But until you actually see what's going on in the body and how your body's responding to the food you're consuming or not responding well to the food you're consuming, it's hard to make an adjustment, right? Because we don't see an issue until our body kind of alerts us that there's an issue. And that might be later on in life that you've been under eating. Another time where I'll see this be an issue is, I wouldn't even say an issue, it's just how it is somebody who has maybe historically yo-yo dieted or been on a diet or under 8 since they were very, very young, and now they're maybe in their 50s or mid 40s, and we're trying to increase calories, but they've noticed weight gain when they increase calories, right? And I always try to gradually increase calories if that's something we need to do, because again, you don't want to do all at once. But with that, we can see like their body wants to hold on to weight, and that's also your body maybe communicating that it's been undernourished or underfueled for a long time. And so it's holding everything it can get and storing it as fat because it doesn't know when it'll get food again. And that's probably in more, I would say, extreme cases, right? But that's why that's important that your metabolic health is supported at a young age. And that's something where if you're older and you're like realizing, oh man, maybe I should have done better with XYZ, or maybe I should have eaten enough or not done that diet, obviously have grace for yourself because you did the best you could with the information you were given, right? And so we have to have grace for ourselves throughout those periods of time. There also could have been an emotional reason for why you were under eating. And so have grace with yourself and gradually increase the calories. If you're somebody who has done more of that like yo-yo dieting or underate historically, your body might start to store it as fat. And I honestly don't think that's a bad thing, although maybe you're at a weight that feels less comfortable. I think from there we can adjust once your metabolism is being supported and you're finally eating enough, and then you can start to adjust maybe calories or the quality of calories or the quality of food or the types of food, maybe higher protein, lower fat, or lower starchy carb, higher protein, right? This is something that you can begin to evaluate once you start eating just enough in general, because women, I would say historically, are not eating enough. The other factor here is if you're moving your body, right? If you are exercising 3 to 6 times per week, you need to up the calories and the protein intake to support movement and muscle growth. So muscle growth and recovery happens when we are eating enough food to support that happening. Otherwise, our body's going to be pulling nutrients from our muscles to actually keep our organs functioning how they should be. And so we need to make sure we're fueling enough, especially when movement is added in. Now, this is where you can adjust your basic metabolic rate. There's going to be an adjustment depending on the calculation you use for activity. And so it'll have you multiply your BMR, basic metabolic rate, times your activity level to, I guess it is going to be like between 3 to 5 times per week, maybe 1 to 2 times per week, or 5 to 6 times of intense exercise per week. You're going to just multiply that by a percentage to get that amount. But you have to take movement into account, like I said, for muscle growth, muscle recovery. I feel like, again, I'm somebody who has been going to the gym consistently forever, and I haven't always noticed muscle growth or the physical result of working out as much as I do. And now, obviously, knowing how much my body needs, I'm able to identify, well, yeah, if you're not eating enough to support muscle growth, you're not going to see muscle growth, or it's just not going to be as obvious, or the extra stress on your body of movement, right? So working out too early postpartum, which I tried not to do, but I'm sure I did, right? Of even just stretching and walking. Your body's already in a depleted state, so maybe movement isn't the best thing, and you're not going to see results also of being in the gym. And so something like if you're in a healing phase, maybe pausing movement and focusing on just eating enough to support the needs of your body, even maybe during pregnancy. This is what I've outlined in that prenatal guide, which is linked in the description of today's episode. I've outlined in there the nutrients that you really should prioritize, the calorie amount that you should be consistently eating throughout pregnancy, and how that adjusts throughout pregnancy. So it's going to adjust from your first trimester to second to third, and postpartum. So just knowing the needs of your body is also really important throughout that stage of life too. Maybe, like I said, exercise isn't as important as just eating enough if that's something you're already struggling to do. I would say if we're, talking in regards to pregnancy, that first trimester, if you feel any sort of morning sickness, or they call it everyday sickness because it's not just in the morning, then you're probably struggling just to eat enough throughout the day. So maybe adding in movement isn't the smartest plan, and just really focus on prioritizing those key nutrients, which I've outlined in that guide. Okay. Really quick, I'll touch on, because I know not everybody is in this stage of life, but if you're breastfeeding, then you need an additional 450 to 500 calories per day. And this doubles if you are feeding twins, okay? So for each kid, it's going to double, or I guess if you have triplets and you're breastfeeding them all, God bless you. But you want then 1,000 calories, 1,500 calories. If you're feeding 2, right, you're at about that 900 calorie mark. And so that's just something to keep in mind to add to your basic metabolic rate, because it's not going to take breastfeeding into account, because it doesn't really even give you that option. I haven't really seen a calculation that does give you that option. And there's also, I want to say, like 5 different ways you can calculate your BMR, but just make sure you're adding in for breastfeeding if that's the stage of life you're in. Okay, so I wanted to give you my own personal example. Again, I was under fueling by about 900 calories per day without really knowing it. I thought, once I have Oliver, then I'm going to go back to eating exactly how I did prior to pregnancy because I'm not eating to support another human. And I knew I needed to eat more for breastfeeding, but I didn't really take that into account. And I didn't take into account the movement that I was also doing throughout the day. So for me, my BMR based off of my weight is 1,337 calories. So like I said, that is the amount of calories I need if I were to just lay in bed and do nothing all day. Then I take that times 1.725, and that gives me the amount of calories I need per day based off my activity level. Now, my activity level right now looks like about at least a 30-minute strength training workout per day. And then I try to walk anywhere from 2 to 3 miles per day on top of that. So about 5 to 6 days a week, that is what my workout routine looks like. And so that was where I got the number 1.725. That's the number they gave me based off my activity level. So that brings me to 2,306 calories needed with, again, BMR plus activity. Then I had to add in that extra 450 for breastfeeding. So that's that 2,306 plus 450 gives me 2,756 calories per day. So that is where, again, 56 or 57, I kind of like, it's only 1 calorie difference, but I noticed I had made a mistake when I was doing my calculation. Anyway, I need 2,756 calories per day. Oh, Oliver, okay. To support my body and to support milk production. So again, how I'm adjusting to this and how I would recommend adjusting. First, work with somebody that can walk you through this if that's realistic for you and if that's kind of support you need. If you have the other health issues that could be at play, so if you are pre-diabetic or are diabetic, or you have some digestive stress, or you are lacking a gallbladder, or the magnitude of things that I have seen throughout labs and throughout working with clients over the last 4 years, if you are one of those people that would do best with having somebody support you through this, first and foremost, do that, okay? The second piece of this is starting slow. So like I said, I'm starting by adding in a snack in the morning and then really prioritizing a snack in the afternoon. So I always kind of did that. I would say during pregnancy, my 3rd trimester, I kind of made the shift of going to 3 big meals a day instead of doing 3 meals a day plus 2 snacks. I don't know, my 3rd trimester, I just felt like I needed more food at one time, but I wasn't really hungry in between meals. So now I'm adding in a snack in the morning, and then I'm adding in my perfect aminos and a snack in the afternoon. Okay, I'm then within this next week kind of focusing on having a bigger breakfast. So hitting about that 500 to 600 calories for breakfast, and for sure that like 30 grams if I'm able. This is then where that piece comes in of adjusting to 4 to 5 meals per day, knowing how much protein you need per day. So that's a separate calculation. And then eating accordingly. So I take my amount of protein I need per day, divide that by 5. That gives me an idea of how many calories I need per fueling or per feeding to hit my protein amount. And then I notice calories typically follow protein when that's a priority. Unless your goal is fat loss, that's when you might notice an adjustment to the structure of your plate. But if you're just eating to meet your BMR and eating to meet your protein intake, you're probably going to be pretty on track if you're at least sticking to the core 4 and prioritizing that amount of protein in each meal. So for me, this looks like breakfast is about 20 to 30 grams of protein. I'm upping the protein right now in breakfast this week. My mid-morning snack, and then I do a decaf raw milk latte, which is anywhere from 12 to 15 grams of protein, and then that latte is an additional 12. So again, about 24, 26 grams of protein. Then my lunch is about 30 grams of protein. My mid-afternoon snack plus my perfect aminos is again about 15 grams of protein. And then supper is kind of ideally the smallest meal. If I can front load the day with a bigger breakfast, bigger lunch, I do a pretty moderate, normal amount of supper, 20 grams of protein plus plenty of fiber, because we can't forget the fiber when we do a lot of protein. I also would encourage you to reduce those empty calories. So when we see, for sure, like if I see a number like 2,800 calories, I've never eaten that much in my life. So for me, I'm like, well, heck, I could get like 3 McDonald's kids meals and that would be that amount of calories, right? But those would be considered empty calories. Those are calories that you're probably going to be hungry within like an hour of eating them, because although the calorie density is high, the nutritional count or I guess for lack of better words, is very low, right? There's a lack of fiber for sure and a lack of protein within that meal, but calories are typically pretty high. Now, this doesn't mean you can't enjoy foods that are not 100% nutrient dense. Like for me, I have kind of gotten into a routine of doing 2 no-bake cookies in the evening. I do just the traditional recipe, but I cut the amount of sugar in half. I think it calls for 2 cups of sugar. I just do 1, and I think they're plenty sweet. I could probably even decrease that amount by more. And then I'll do like a digestive tea. So that's kind of like what I've really been enjoying. And are those the most nutrient dense, having a cookie? No. But do I think there's anything wrong with having a sweet treat in the evening? No. So it's okay for your calories to not always 100% have a purpose, or be super nutrient dense with every single feeding, I guess, that you have, but just to be aware of that, right? Like I know, the cookies are not the most nutrient dense, but that's okay. They're delicious and it's something that I enjoy. And in order to hit the amount of calories I need, sometimes it looks like having something with a little bit higher calorie density and a little less nutritional value, and that is fine as long as, like I said, I am prioritizing my 3 meals a day plus 2 snacks. All right, so again, I'm leaving you with the question, are you eating enough? Hopefully today's episode has given you some ideas on how you could structure your meals so that you can eat enough, or even just a way to get a basic calculation for the meal or the amount of calories you need per day and the amount of protein then you need per day. But I know it can be really confusing, and I spit out a lot of information in the last 45 minutes, and I feel like I'm speaking at lightning speed because I've got Oliver here and want to wrap this up so we can get some lunch and go play. But I wanted to get this recorded and get this uploaded for you to have something to listen to this week and to connect with you, because this is really the space that I share the most about personal life, but also share the most free advice and tips. Of course, everything I talk about is 100% personalized when you're able to get one-on-one support. So I give a lot of general recommendations. Again, that is exactly what they are. They're general recommendations. So take as much of this as you want to utilize, but this is where I would recommend at least getting started and then adjusting based off of knowing what your body needs through some sort of testing, or with a predisposed health condition, things can also be adjusted too. All right. So let's go ahead and close today's episode in prayer. So dear Lord, just thank you for today. Thank you for the ability to speak today to whoever's listening to today's episode. I pray for their safety this week and that they are able to work through the emotional piece of eating enough and know that their body is deserving of food, that it's deserving of nourishment, but also that physical piece, that they feel supported, that they are able to nourish their body well and nourish their body with good food that just allows them to live out their everyday life with purpose and confidence. And I just pray again for them, and as they enter into this next week, that they just feel encouraged and inspired to take care of their whole body health. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. All right, so if you're interested in following along with my life outside of the podcast, you can find me at Nourish with Bailey or Bailey Seaton on any social platform. My email is in the description of today's episode if you ever want to connect, but I will also put the information for that prenatal guide. This is, again, if you're even within 3 years thinking about having babies, this would be a guide for you. So much good information there that I wish I would have had throughout my pregnancy that I had to dig for. It's really just all laid out for you. So I'll put that in the description, as well as the information for blood work and HTMA testing, where we can get nitty gritty and dive into your calorie need, ideal foods to support different things going on in your body, nutrient deficiencies, all the things, is what I do with clients day to day. So we can do that too. If you are interested in that, it'll be in the description. All right. So with that, I will talk to you again next Wednesday.